Welcome to everyone that can join us today, or if you're catching this in the repost, please join at that time too. Welcome to Pajama and Coffee Society, our Friday roundtable. And if you notice that I don't have my normal co-host with me, sorry, this is not Lee, as everybody knows. Lee is unable to join us this morning. She had her secular job had an event that she had to attend, so she was unable to attend because not all of us right now are full-time entrepreneurs. So she's with us in spirit, and I guarantee she's going to be commenting. But we have instead an amazing co-host today, Luba. Luba, thank you for joining myself. And it's interesting. I was just telling Luba this. I have a feeling Alethea just showed up. Good morning to you as well. I, Luba and I were just saying this right before I hit record that we have been circling each other for months now. We're within the same group of amazing women within an organization that we both dearly love in our hearts. And we've always been on events together, and we've been there and, wave, hello, nice to meet you. But we said this was destined to happen because we had to talk. This was going to happen no matter what. So welcome this morning. Thank you for getting up and showing up in your jammies, which always makes everyone laugh. But at the same time, it's the most incredibly comfortable conversation in your jammies with your coffee. And so thank
The
you.
best attire all week. I mean, I'm loving
That's
it.
okay. That's okay. I will tell you, you kind of match the theme of your office there though too, and I love
There you
that.
go. There
Yes.
you go. Yeah.
So, Luba, would you tell everyone to a little bit about you? And the reason being is, as I said to you right before we went on, is this group is meant to encourage female entrepreneurs. Some or a lot of them would be maybe a little earlier in their journey. Some of the rest of us have a little bit more experience under our belt, a couple more scars as entrepreneurs, beautiful scars. And so the context of this group is that we want to encourage every woman to be an entrepreneur. Personally, just so you know, I don't think you know this about me, is that my personal passion, my path is to help single moms become entrepreneurs. That has always been my dedication, is that I want to see single moms become free of the divorce stigma and find their financial freedom. Because again, being a single parent, as I was for 20 plus years, you are mom and dad inside of a home. And so that is always, that's where my eye is always going to be, is to help other single moms. But there is a lot of moms in this group, young entrepreneurs, older entrepreneurs, and we all have our stories. And so we would love to hear a little bit more about your story.
Sure. Absolutely. Hello. Um, Now, I am a mom. I have two beautiful teenagers. One just turned 18 and another is 15 and a half. I've had a lot of guilt mom over the years,
We all do.
like many moms do.
Mhm.
But interesting, this is what I learned in the last couple of years is kids are watching and they may miss you once in a while because you're too busy here and there, but they watch you. And my girls tell me how proud they are of everything that I am doing, if not every day, every other day. So they're watching. So if I was to give like one advice to anybody who's starting to has little kids, that guilt thing, you have to invest in yourself, and you are showing an incredible example of what one can accomplish. And rather than kind of feeling that guilt, think about that you're inspiring your kids because they're seeing it, they're watching it, and even if they're not appreciating it, at the age of 5 or 6, they will older.
I cannot agree with you more. With my children being, my youngest is 10, my middle son is 16, and then my daughter is 22. And my middle son in particular, because he again, middle child, one, and two, he is my strategist. At the age of 4, he had 20 questions lined up. But one thing he said to me a couple of years ago is the fact that because I work hard, he works hard. And it just warmed my heart when he said that to me, because I didn't realize that because we have hard work ethics as entrepreneurs, we are instilling that just naturally in our children. But the other thing that I appreciate as being moms and entrepreneurs for myself is the fact that we're setting the example to become entrepreneurs for them. That is,
Absolutely.
it's just a normalized situation. And in fact, Luba, I grew up with entrepreneurial parents. Both of my parents had their own businesses when I was growing up. And so it was a very natural course. They always encouraged me. And my mom told me at a very young age, you're going to be an entrepreneur. So I think that for us and our generation of moms, more of us are entrepreneurs. And of course, we need more, but more of us are entrepreneurs. And I think the example is really amazing as a generational effect.
So I have a kind of funny story for you.
Go for it.
Now, I grew up, none of my parents were business owners, none of the
Okay.
grandparents. So
Yeah.
I did not grow up. We all had full-time jobs. I still do to this day. So my business is my business. It's
Yes.
really a side hustle that I am so passionate about because I help women
Mhm.
boost their credibility, whatever they do. They could be full-time employees. They want to get to the next level. I make sure they show up as thought leaders. If they want to start a side gig, I help them do that. But I started my business because I was inspired by my daughter, who was 14 at the time,
Wow,
who
that's
started
amazing.
her business.
That's amazing. So what business did she start?
So I'll tell you a story that
Mhm.
will maybe make you cry first.
Uh-oh. It's early
Yeah,
in the morning for tears, but go
it
for
is
it.
early in the morning, but it
Mhm.
is so inspiring because it's kind of like a circle. She inspired me, but then I inspired her, and then she
Wow, that's
continues to
beautiful.
inspire me. So at the beginning of the pandemic in March, my older daughter, who was 14, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma,
Oh my goodness.
and it sucked
Yeah.
so badly. It was
Yeah.
horrible. Now, she's fine now, knock on wood. It's all knock
Yes.
on wood. But while she was going through treatments, I started writing. Now, I am in the tech space. I studied computer science for 8 years. I was an engineer. So my world was not, I was not an author. Like, I didn't know anybody who published the book. There was no one around me
Yes.
who had a business, was in, entrepreneurship just was not, I was just not in it. Different life. I was in my own bubble. But when she was going through treatment and I was at the Jimmy Fund, I needed to keep my sanity.
Yes.
Otherwise, I would just lose my mind. So I started writing and I wrote my memoir. Now, for my daughter, who was going through treatments which were very harsh at the age of 14, she
Yes.
found a way to cope. She did two things. She baked a lot. Like I gained pounds and pounds because you don't say no to a freshly baked croissant, right?
Yes.
When
Yeah.
your daughter just spent a couple of hours working on it, and she created her website with the help of my sister and her cousin, and she started making scrunches for the hair, and
Okay.
then she was knitting hats, and then so she was like selling these things here and there, but she had a full blown, she would take pictures of them, she would post them, and it was the first time where I'm like, I don't know where this is coming from, but hey, if this is helping you. So
Yes.
we were also separated for months from my husband and my younger daughter because of the pandemic, right? So
Yes.
everyone is extra paranoid.
Yes.
So for 6 months, we both found our ways to cope. So I watched her being so passionate about the business. I mean, you're going through chemo, it sucks.
Yes.
And yet, right, there's this enthusiasm, and she's doing things and making things and selling things. And so there was a lot of excitement. I did not have my business at that point. I just wrote my memoir to have a legacy, to leave something for my children, the
Mhm.
story of my great parents. And, but so she inspired me with the business idea. And in parallel, my publishing coach kept planting seeds about start your business, become a public speaker. And I'm like, "Ah, that's not my thing. That's not like," I was like, nah, like, what? I have nothing else to do. I have two kids. Like,
Yes.
no. But the seeds were planted, and she kept saying, well, why don't you show up? Because my book was about, um, it's a journey of resilience, right? How do you, it's wrapped around having a positive outlook on life, regardless what crap is thrown your way.
Yes.
And so she said, why don't you show up as, an expert in resilience? And at some point I said, no, I'm already an expert in digital transformations in the tech space. Why don't I write just another book? It's easier. Like I'm
Yes.
already, an expert. But the start of the business started by my daughter inspiring me, my publishing coach planting seeds. And so I started my company, and not to have any kind of conflict of interest with my full-time job, I positioned it as public speaking and facilitation, because I can facilitate and speak as much as I want. It has absolutely nothing proprietary. It's my book,
Yes.
um, and that's how it started, and it morphed into something else over the last couple of years, which I'm happy to share, but I'll take a break in case you have.
It's okay. No, I was enjoying listening to your story. And I do need to ask, how has your daughter's health been since then?
Nothing goes on. What's the right way of saying it? The treatment is so harsh, and mentally, the journey is so difficult,
Yes.
especially when you're 14. It's tough. So it's been up and down. There are some things that are lingering, but this is another thing that I want to share as far as leading by example. Like I mentioned, nobody around me ever published a book.
Yes.
Now, my daughter did not have a great time, obviously, through this whole thing, but she became a lot more resilient. And at some point, she was not doing very well as far as mental health.
Of course.
And but one day, when I was really worried, it's like, okay, you're stuck in your room, um, you know, severely depressed. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Perhaps it's time to maybe, get out of bed and shower and get going with the day. And it went on for like a couple of days, and I would check in on her. She came down one day, I don't know, maybe day 4 or 5, and she goes, "Mom, look at this." So yes, she was in bed, but you know what she was doing? She was writing a book
Oh, that's amazing.
about mental health, about bullying, about everything that teenagers go through.
Yes.
And she said, I'm about 100 pages in, and she drew. Basically, she even like had drawings to go along with the poems and this and that, and like this whole thing. How would she get an idea to write the book? Like she saw mom publish one,
Yes.
and then two, and so she's like, okay, if my mom can publish 2 books, why can't I?
Yes. Well, so it's very interesting with book. It's Wednesday mornings, as I had mentioned to you, that I get a chance to talk about mastery of the middle is something that I coach on and something I speak about on Wednesdays. Well, Wednesday I had this whole plan to talk about it's advice that I had received many years ago in my career, and I started speaking about it, and then I transitioned and I started talking about that I was having a bad health day. I myself was diagnosed at 14 with an autoimmune disease. And so my heart goes out to your daughter in a little bit of a different fashion for the fact that I was that kid stuck in bed at the same time period. And I ended up having to transition into homeschooling because I could not, because of my health, finish through regular high school. So I do want to say that I do understand from a little bit of a different perspective of the loneliness that goes with it. And it is, you're not equipped for the world at 14 to handle an adult health issue. Nobody is ever, I should say, but especially at that time period where you should be going to movies with your friends and doing the normalcies of life, and again, on top of that, she went through it during the pandemic. So, I mean, I'm going to be thinking about her later, that's for sure. And I thank you for sharing her story a little bit. And I love that that inspired you to become an entrepreneur as well. And I know, so if for anybody that wants to learn more about Lila, we're going to be having her come back very soon on one of our podcast episodes. So we'll hear a lot more about her business for sure. But I have one particular question I was not going to let you escape from. A little birdie told me, and you know who it was, that you are amazing at retreats and transformation for women. Like you are like the be all end all for retreats. So would you like to talk about that a little bit? Because I'm just forcing you. Like I'm not letting you get away
Oh,
with this.
listen, I can talk.
Guys, I heard you love to talk about this too.
I can talk about it seriously from the moment I open my eyes
Good.
to
Okay.
very
Perfect.
late at night. Like
Perfect.
I even have it, like I have all the women that went to the last one and the agenda,
Oh,
and
that's
like, oh,
beautiful.
I'm like not even taking it down because I'm like living and breathing it every day.
So, how many retreats have you done to date, and how many do you have upcoming? Because I hear there's a wait list.
So funny you should ask. Like the way you
Mhm.
introduced it, it sounded like I've been doing them all my life, but in fact,
I
um,
know that's not true.
I had so in the tech space we call them offsites.
Okay.
Now, it's very different when you do it for the corporate world. You have the
Mhm.
corporate credit card. You're not worried about anyone
Yes.
anyone suing you or anything like that. If somebody doesn't like something, well, suck it up. Oh well, sorry. Go
Talk
back
to
to work.
HR. Yeah.
Talk to HR like you're being
Mhm.
paid for being here. So
Yes.
and nobody's paying out of their own pocket. So it's like whatever. So I had done a lot of those,
Mhm.
and last no last February of this year,
Okay.
I started this mentorship program based. So it's a whole journey. So I wrote the book. I took many women on a journey with me from the tech space. I then had the mentorship program, and I thought, why don't I finish the 2023 with a bang and like do an in-person retreat?
Mhm.
So I rented two beautiful mansions on the water in Fort Lauderdale, and we had women from all walks of life. And when people ask me like what's your favorite part, so first of all, I love people. I love humans. Maybe a little bit less with age. I used to love them even more. Now I have a limit,
We'll
like
call it discernment. We'll call it age, wisdom, and discernment. Yes.
whatever we call it, however we label it.
Yes.
I love people, and because I facilitate a lot of sessions in the tech space, and I've been in person my whole career.
Mhm.
The pandemic, I am very tool savvy. I have all kinds of different tools. We've transferred large planning sessions for hundreds of people, remotely. I get that. We can achieve. Nothing compares to the energy in the room with people. Just nothing. And for me to see, 16 women from various walks of life. We are talking about, we had a chief technical officer, we had someone who just retired from the military and served in Iraq. We had a woman whose company is to take women on a river trip. So like you're off the grid for 6 days, like
Wow.
floating along the river. Everybody's like, there's their cooks, and so like we had the women sharing not just their journeys but also their passions. Like if you had a magic wand type of a thing, and why would you like to walk away from the retreat? And I think to me it was so powerful. Even the people that I knew and I thought like I knew what they would say,
Mhm.
because they were inspired by other stories, they would choose to share even more.
Yes.
And because the way we did it was people were sharing kind of their thoughts, their passions, their dreams, and you had 16 kick-ass women going, I'll help you. Oh,
That's
I'll help you. I'll connect you. Oh, I know someone. And I was just, I'm actually having
I
goosebumps,
did too. I did
right?
too.
And
Yes.
it was so powerful. And because I take things seriously, if I have my mind set on something, what I did, I enrolled into the program with the retreat boss,
Yes.
because okay, like I understand that I had done them, but I had done them in a very different way. Here I reached out, I said I probably need some legal contract, like I probably need to
Yes.
know a few things that maybe I wouldn't have considered. So the agenda and the facilitation, that's like you can wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'll be like, okay, let's go. Like I have facilitation tools, like I have
Yes.
stuff, But I enrolled, I went through the course, and there was one thing that Catherine, who owns that company, said, and she said, by the time you have your first retreat, you should really have the next one planned so that you can share with people, because when they're there and they're loving it,
Yes. They're
next
going
thing
to
I
want to go
know,
when they can see you again.
next thing I know, I have 7 planned for 2024.
I heard. So when this was just random. It was not planned this way. Catherine was actually on last Friday.
Okay.
Okay, and again, we got to all the group got to literally meet her for the first time more than I already knew her, but it was so funny because not on this, but she told me the story. She's like, yeah, she went from 1 to 7. I'm like, what? How? And she goes, I don't know, but it's Luba. That's literally was about what she said about it. So I've been waiting to have this conversation with you. It's just that is amazing. One thing that Catherine has said, and I think you're going to answer the same way, is I had asked her last week on here who should be the right person, company, entrepreneur, to be planning a retreat. And her advice was every company should. If you're into transformation, anything where you want to take somebody on a journey, there should be that path in the future. In fact, even in this group, our plan is for probably beginning of 2025, end of 2024, we're going to be doing some retreats that are based on business strategy, where you spend 3 days immersing yourself in your business strategy. Because, again, as moms and women that are running around flipping laundry 5 minutes before we get on here, then we still need time to work on our businesses. So I do believe that retreats, before, I will tell you, I always thought, yeah, that's a great idea. I'd love to. I don't have the time. But I'll tell you that seeing other women do them and also participating myself in immersive events where I have had life-changing moments, that I got to do one 2 summers ago in Colorado and Denver. And I intentionally, and I can tell you that I left about 70% of my stress there with a breakthrough, and I've never picked it back up. And so I do believe everybody should participate in them and also should facilitate them. And I have a feeling you're going to say, absolutely, you agree.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect.
As far as breakthroughs, this is so funny. I was catching up yesterday with a woman who went to the November one, and she's going to the next one as well. And we were talking a lot about financial freedom. And the woman who, as a fair exchange, she's a financial advisor, and she's going to one of the future ones in Nashville. And she's donating her time, and she's running a 6-hour workshop that she usually charges clients for, about becoming a retired dish. Like, how do you actually prepare yourself for retirement, whether it's in 10, 20, 30 years. So, but she was local to Florida, and so she came to the Florida one as a guest surprise speaker. She donated her book that she had written in my cohort. So when I was writing my memoir, this is how I met her.
Okay.
Judy. And she came as a guest speaker, and she was talking about financial freedom, even though the overall theme was not really about financial freedom, but it was one of the agenda was creating side gigs and all of that wonderful stuff. And so she gave a little bit of a spiel. And of course, I already lined her up to be a guest for the next one. So I was able to say, well, if you want to dive in more, like, that's going to be the Nashville one. So one of the women absorbed it, had that plant seeded. She called me yesterday and she said, I am buying a franchise.
Oh, wonderful.
For the passive income.
That's wonderful.
She did all the numbers. So she left that retreat. Of course, her husband now says, okay, how many more retreats are you going with?
You started a movement and now you're responsible, huh? That's wonderful. So if somebody is, and again, I still want to talk to you about the journey of entrepreneurs. But this has just been such a wonderful conversation that if somebody is listening to this and they're like, okay, I'm a newer entrepreneur, what I know you're going to tell me retreat boss, obviously, and she's going to laugh that we're talking about her this whole time. But besides, definitely get with Catherine, get into that program, because it is one of the best in the entire world, or if not the best in the entire world. But what else would you say as an entrepreneur? What would be your advice internally within a company? If you are making those plans, what would be your advice to women that are going to listen to this and say, hey, I'm a newer entrepreneur. I'm a young entrepreneur. I can see the vision of doing that one day, but what would you say that they would need to do now to prepare for that?
Are you talking about organizing retreats and masterminds, like that side of
Within your company? Yes. Like,
it?
okay, like I have a company, I could see how a retreat would fit in. What would be your one piece of advice for them?
Listen, I give this advice to um, large corporations when it comes to innovating new products. You
Mm,
take something big, you have a vision, you have some kind of a North Star, right? You
yes.
imagined it,
Yes.
you set your mind to it, you take it and you break it down in smaller chunks, and you
Yes.
say, what is the minimum that I can do today that will get me closer to where I want to go? And
Absolutely.
honestly, forget about the stress. Leave the stress somewhere else. Stress doesn't help anything.
Nope.
Don't come up with the chunk so big, right, that when at the end of the day you're like, okay, well, I didn't do really anything because I had to do the laundry, and somebody called from school, and my husband, whatever that may be.
Yes.
um but kind of like come up with the smallest and doable and achievable task. Small actions add up to huge outcomes.
I couldn't agree with you more, Luba. I honestly, there's it's a spoken word podcaster I've been listening to for several years, and his name's Eddie Piero. If you haven't listened to him, I'll send it to you. I love it. It's great when you're like putting on your makeup in the morning because it's like you don't have to watch it, but it's there. And one of the things he said recently was, you take action in small steps over and over again, and before you know it, you're going to look back over your shoulder and see a distance between where you began and where you are right now. And I just sat there for a minute. I'm like, that was such a simple way to explain it, but it's true. You do. You put your head down and day after day do little things, and it does add up. I am a perfect example of that, and a complete. I will always come to bat for you and say she is right. I agree, because it does. It does make a big difference. One thing I would add to that is, I don't know if you've ever done. It's called like the 12-week. What is it? It's the 12-week year. So you have like basically you take 4 quarters of the year and treat them as years. So instead of having 4 quarters to a year, you have 4 years within. And I know it's a little thing, but it really does make a difference. What a beautiful surprise! Hear about me. Whoa, who's listening? I wonder who that
Oh,
is.
I wonder who that is. Yes.
Send the checks, lady. Oh boy, does that mean every time we use the name Catherine, that check goes up? I think we have an advantage. She just gave us a little power there that we're going to have to
All
use again.
right.
I know, but well, Catherine, we completely agree that Retreat Boss is one of the best companies for almost every entrepreneur, especially within this group, to work with. So yes, we are totally prepared to say that we endorse it because of both of us. Oh, she has a message for us. There you go. So I definitely agree. But planning out our years, that is the thing. And but breaking it down, maybe even so. What I've done to get my company to this point is, I took the big goal, and then I went down to quarters, and then I went down to months, and then weeks and days, and not trying to be creating a busy work schedule for myself. But what I did was, I thought, okay, with myself being that we work for visibility for companies a lot, that's the easiest word to use to associate with us. How much do I have to do on a daily basis to get that business partner the visibility they need in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? So it helps more than you realize to do that in any business. That is for sure. That is absolutely. So let's get back to our first conversation, because I do not want to forget to ask you this, because then we can talk about it as much as we want, about the fact of, as female entrepreneurs and the struggles we've all overcome. Obviously, your daughter's health was a big chunk of your journey, but has there been other things that you have personally said, this has been a problem for me and this is how I overcame it? Because I feel like as female entrepreneurs, we do not get a chance to speak about that enough. We might have a private conversation where we both sit down and go, oh, we're exhausted. But to the public, it's always this, got it all together, which is fine. It's great. But the reality is, we need to know that all of us have commonalities in those struggles. It's normal for all of us to have time problems with balance. I'm the first one to admit that, because there's never enough time in the day, things like that. So, what would be your one that you would say, this is the one that I've been very strategic about, and this is how I am strategic about it?
Mm.
I know that's a pretty big question, isn't it?
It's a big one, but what
Come
you just said, it's almost like I guess I need to confess to myself because I was gonna say, well,
I
I'm very
promise you that wasn't to make you attack yourself. I promise. Okay.
no, no, no. I know as I was like kind of going through my head, I was gonna actually my comeback line, although I tried to use active listening and not
Mhm.
think about what I'm gonna say next, but I was gonna say, well, I am an open book. Like I go online, I go on lives, like I share, but do I truly share my struggles? I would say one struggle I've probably only shared with Catherine, to be honest with you, and that is the financial struggle. The financial struggle of overcommitting. So the way I started my business, I did not take out any business loans. I basically operated from my own money.
Mhm.
Now, one might think, oh, what are the expenses? But the expenses add up,
Yes, they do.
right? I mean, it's like you start with little things. It's like we have to host your website. I have Teachable, where I create the courses, right?
Mhm.
To publish the book was a lot of money as
Yes.
well. And so those little things they come up, and the traveling and this and that. And renting the beautiful mansions. And I remember thinking, okay, in that particular case, I had a deposit down and I could bail out. Like if it didn't get sold,
Yes.
I would bail out. However, when you have at least a few people already lined up and excited to go, and I always want to give, and I think that's the struggle. I did have a big win yesterday that I will share with you. And so my struggle was, okay, I work full time and I get paid. And so I took the money that I made from my full time job
Mhm.
and I invested into my business.
Yes.
And I kept telling myself, this is not business. This isn't even a hobby. This is like, what is this? Right. And so, like, I kept kind of questioning if I'm doing it the right way.
Yes.
Um, and how did I overcome it? At some point, when I had 5 people lined up as a fair exchange and one scholarship, so still not a single payment came in to
Yes.
cover the cost. Um, I did start thinking, oh my God, like what am I doing? Like like what, this doesn't make kind of any sense. Um, but then the vision stayed, but strategically, I think I changed probably maybe 3, 4 things, and I had like a backup plan. My last resort, I was going to open it up to men. Now, I wanted to do it for women because, especially in the tech space, that
Yes.
was the original thing. I was going to do it just for women in tech. We are underrepresented, and
Yes.
that's the challenge. And so I thought, okay, I am going to do it this way. I had this vision that learning and development budget in the tech corporations, VPs of engineering, VPs of product, they have that corporate card. I used to hold that corporate card, so I knew there was budget. But something just wasn't working. And so I had to pivot. So one thing is do not give up, but find how you can pivot
Yes.
because talk to people, right? I mean, there are solutions. So
Yes.
I chatted with, now I'm surrounded by men. It sounds wonderful. But what I mean is, like, even in the tech space, I would have people reach out and say, is it just for women? Is it just for women? Men are more likely to pay for their development, for their career growth. That's
Correct.
just
Yes.
women don't, right? We prioritize money in a different way. Dance lessons, ski race team. Oh, we need a new roof. Great. We need to paint. There's so many
And the
expenses.
kids need shoes and the dentist and yes, absolutely.
So it's thousands, and we could be making it, but we're not investing in ourselves. So and one of the guys I was talking to, I was also thinking, okay, maybe I'm pricing it too much. Like, what is it? But I don't think so. So he basically said, because you haven't done it. So if you go to your website, like there are no pictures, like right. And if people know you very well, that's one thing. If people don't, he said anything under 2,000. He said I would pay without blinking to what you're telling me you'll be doing there. I
Mhm.
would go without blinking. Anything above 2K, I don't know. Like
Yes,
so
that's
I said,
very Accurate. Yes.
right?
Hmm.
Okay, so I said fine. That was good feedback. So I was asking people actively for feedback, and I was listening to that feedback. So I would say, key number one, if something isn't working out, talk to people and pivot. And I kept getting on those discovery calls where women would be saying, "Oh, but can I be a trainer? But I also want to share my expertise." Because what I do there is I boost people's credibility by putting them on stage, having them either do a keynote or a workshop. Professional photographer captures you, we do videos and stuff. And so there's so many aspects to those. So I turned it into a mastermind and I said, fine, everyone is a trainer.
Yes. There you go.
And then all of a sudden, especially entrepreneurs, it was like, what's $2,500 if I have a single room in a beautiful mansion for 4 nights with all the food included, and I get the photos of me, and I get the raw footage, and I have Luba blasting me all over her social media and other women, and I get to spend time with this incredible women and walk away with my plan for 2024, and it was like and it's like, yeah, sure, $2,500, it's nothing. Like,
Yes.
people who paid didn't even blink.
It was the perspective.
It was the
That's what it comes
perspective.
to. Yes.
And I also kind of, like, I was telling Catherine actually, because I was on her podcast a little while ago. Maybe it was last week. I don't know. Days fly by. Um, but so I had half of the women, go as a fair exchange. So they would provide their services to the women there, which
Yes.
was also heartwarming. So yes, they for whatever reason didn't want to invest, whatever, but they paid with their services, right?
Yes.
And one went on a scholarship, and then those who paid almost made me break even, but like not quite.
Hmm.
And so I told myself, I'm going to think of it as marketing expense. This is what I want to do in the future. I was told that because there are no videos, there are no testimonials yet from that kind of a mastermind. I
Yes.
had things from other things, but that's different,
Correct.
right? It's one thing to say, invite Luba to
Mhm.
facilitate. No, but this is different. So I said, that's going to be my marketing expense. And I stopped worrying about it. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to add the $5,000 from my savings account. Yeah, maybe it sucks, but you know what? That's the cost of investing and creating. The business is just starting. So, like, I gave myself grace.
You gave
And then,
yourself permission too to
yeah,
just be.
to just be.
Yeah.
And 3 days before the start, I had one woman who joined and basically covered the rest of the cost and
There you
then
go.
some. So that
Some,
was awesome.
so sometimes it just takes us not being afraid to do the thing. I completely agree. My journey, Luba, I've been an entrepreneur for almost 20 years now. And I actually, somebody made a comment for you there that mindset is everything. And we completely, both of us absolutely agree with that. But I actually, the first time around, it's like you're doing really good and you have all these lofty goals, and then the reality kind of sets in. And then after that, then when the reality sets in, it's the panic mode of what did I do? But I've come to realize now, going through it two times over now in 20 years, that is a rite of passage that you have to go through. I have actually started calling it the hazing of entrepreneurialism, because it's self-induced, absolutely, but we have to realize that our big idea still needs to be developed. And congratulations from getting through that time period. And again, you went from 1 to 7. So obviously you did it right. And we're going to continue to watch for your journey. And we would love to have updates. And
Absolutely.
I will tell you that we've been trying to do on here as well is one that we ask that as you're getting closer to other ones or new things coming out, please jump back on with us so we can hear about those things. That's one request. And the other request that I always make is that we'll be doing a spotlight on you in the next week or so where it can line up with a podcast. So we will be providing information. So anybody wants to join one of your retreats that they can in the future. But what is the best social media for you? Like, is it your LinkedIn, Facebook? What would be the best way?
So from LinkedIn, you can schedule time with me. You can check out my website. You can check out
Perfect.
the schedule for all the masterminds. I'd say LinkedIn is a good place. I
Okay,
do have a website as well, which is
sure.
super simple to
Luba,
remember.
would you please spell your last name so for anybody that wants to connect with you on LinkedIn?
How's that?
Well, that's in private. So here,
Oh,
I will go ahead. No, don't worry. Okay, I will go ahead and take care of it for you. And then, so we will, like I said, be having Luba come back very, very soon. I do know that Alethea probably is feeling like she is missing out right now, and she would love to have a conversation with you as well.
sure.
So we will
Anytime.
definitely make sure that that happens for anybody. There is, I'm just going to post it. There we go. There we go. So for anybody that would like to connect with her, you said 7? Are they all going to be in 2024?
Yes, they have different sub themes. So
Mm-hmm.
overall theme is boosting credibility, but each has a sub theme and they are all over. We have Tulum, Mexico, we have
Yeah, that's
Nashville.
my second home, so we'll have to talk about that.
All right. So there's
Yes.
Nashville, there's LA, New Hampshire in October here nearby with the beautiful leaves and stuff. One international. So that
Nice.
one I have to say is going to be very unique because I am taking 10 people to my home country, to Vilnius, to
That's
Lithuania.
beautiful.
Um,
Wonderful.
yeah,
That's got to be such an amazing trip and so special for you as well. Like what you will receive from that is nothing like the experience of others. So that we will definitely want to hear an update about that as well.
absolutely.
Perfect. Well, thank you so, so much, Lee. We're sorry that you aren't here with us too. She's just made the comment. She said she's not here with us, but we will definitely have
Sending
to.
you a big hug.
There you go. You will absolutely love Lee, and that you two will have to connect very, very soon. She's just absolutely amazing. I'm going to put your information back up one more time. So, in case anybody wants to go ahead and find you on LinkedIn, they can do that. And we will talk to you very, very soon again because there's so many more conversations to be had. This was just like scratching the surface of conversations that we are going to have in the very near future. I already know it, and I'm just claiming you as well. So, it's going
I'm
to happen.
feeling it. I'm
Okay.
feeling it, my friend.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you so, so much. And Lee will be back Monday live. I will be back next Wednesday live. But in between, of course, we have a new podcast episode dropping next Tuesday. So catch up with all of that. And I will see you live next Wednesday. And Luba, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for giving your time today, first and foremost, because as we know, our time is the most precious gift that we have. So from the bottom of my
Thank
heart,
you for having me.
thank you so much. And we will be back on Monday. Thank you so much and have a wonderful weekend. See you next time.